everyone, and welcome back to What the Florida, the show where in each episode we do a deep dive into a distinctly Florida subject. I'm your host and Professional Floridian Kim, and on today's episode we're going to be discussing some of Florida's most notorious true crime. In the spirit of full transparency, this video is very last minute. April has been such a crazy busy month for me. My brother got married. Congratulations, Chris and Jill. So a bunch of family came into town and we had to go and do that for a whole week celebration basically. This video is going to be very shoddy, but that's what you come to expect from shoddy content. Subscribe, like, share, etc. Let's get into it. So you can tell by the title of this video, we are going to be discussing both the deaths of Gianni Versace as well as the Ponzi scheme by the late Bernie Madoff. So needless to say, today's video will be covering the topics of death, murder, suicide, mental health, etc. This has been your trigger warning. If this is not something that you're very interested in hearing about, maybe check out one of my other videos, leave a like before you go and just comment like, I hate this, and then you can go. As I was writing and researching and scripting out this video, Bernie Madoff died. I Googled Bernie Madoff, and then it was like 12 minutes ago, Bernie Madoff died in prison. But I already did all of this research, so I'm gonna do this anyway, and you're just gonna have to hear about it. Madoff started his firm in 1960, Bernard L. Madoff Investment Securities, it's a mouthful, as a penny stock trader with $5,000 earned working as a lifeguard and a sprinkler installer. His fledgling business began to grow with the assistance of his father-in-law, accountant Saul Alpin, who referred a circle of friends and their family. To compete with firms that were members of the New York Stock Exchange, his firm began using innovative computer technology, which later became the NASDAQ. Madoff remained chairman of his firm until his arrest in 2008. Madoff's firm employed Peter, Madoff's brother, as senior managing director and chief compliance officer. Peter was sentenced to 10 years in prison for his role in the scheme. Peter's daughter, Shana Madoff, was hired as the rules and compliance officer as well as the attorney. And Madoff's sons, Andrew and Mark, were also employed. Mark committed suicide exactly 2 years after his father's arrest. Madoff was a master marketer throughout the 70s and 80s. He built a reputation as a wealth manager for highly exclusive clientele. Investors who gained access, typically on word-of-mouth referral, believed they had entered the inner circle of money-making genius, and some were wary of removing their money from his fund in case they could not get it back. Should have heeded that red flag. The firm was seen as an exclusive opportunity. The New York Post reported that Madoff worked the so-called Jewish circuit of well-heeled Jews he met at country clubs on Long Island and in Palm Beach, Florida. Madoff's annual returns were unusually consistent, around 10%, and were a key factor in perpetuating the fraud. Ponzi schemes typically pay returns of 20% or higher and then collapse quickly. An unnamed investor remarked, quote, "The returns were just amazing, and we trusted this guy for decades. If you wanted to take money out, you always got your check within a few days. And that's why we were all so stunned," unquote. Now, I am not going to go too far into the stock market weeds here, but instead I'll just say things were really good for the investment company until they were no longer good. See, in 2008, we had this little thing called a recession. Maybe you've heard of it? And suddenly, in a panic, all of Madoff's investors began pulling out their savings. Imagine their surprise when they found out that their money wasn't available. As the stock market's decline accelerated, investors tried to withdraw $7 billion from the firm. Unknown to them, however, Madoff had simply deposited his clients' money into his business account at Chase Manhattan Bank and paid customers out of that account when they requested withdrawals. To pay off those investors, Madoff needed new money from other investors. but it was a recession. The balance in November dropped to dangerously low levels. Only $300 million in new money had come in, but customers had withdrawn $320 million. Even with a rush of new investors who believed Madoff was one of the few funds that was still doing well in the recession, it still wasn't enough to keep up with the avalanche of withdrawals. So basically it was a pyramid scheme, right? Investors were paying money in and expecting that Bernie Madoff was growing their money when really he was spending their money, and then when they went to take money out, he was using other people's money to pay them. But then he stopped having new money come in, so he couldn't pay out all of the money that people wanted. By the week after Thanksgiving 2008, Madoff knew he was at the end of his tether. The Chase account, which at one point in 2008 had well over $5 billion, was down to only $234 million. On December 4th, he told Frank DePascali, who oversaw the Ponzi scheme's operation, that he was finished. He directed DePascali to use the remaining balance in the Chase account to cash out the accounts of relatives and favored investors. Madoff also told his sons of the business's impending collapse. The sons revealed their father's plans to use the remaining money to pay relatives and favored investors. Their lawyers put them in touch with the federal prosecutors and the SEC. Madoff was arrested the following morning. On March 12, 2009, Bernie Madoff appeared in court in a plea proceeding and pled guilty to all charges. And on June 26, 2009, Judge Chin ordered Madoff to forfeit $170 million in assets. His wife, Ruth, was required to relinquish her claim on $80 million worth of assets, which would leave her with $2.5 million in cash. On June 29th, Judge Chin sentenced Madoff to 150 years in prison, as recommended by the prosecution. Of course, Bernie Madoff did not make it through his full 150-year sentence. As I said earlier, he did die on April 14th, 2021 of kidney disease. He died in jail. He did request an early leave, but they denied it. In the end, the scheme defrauded investors of an estimated $17.5 billion. It also drove several investors and even Madoff's own son to suicide. It wasn't a victimless crime. Lives were ruined by the loss of life savings. The people affected in Palm Beach still speak about it to this day. There is so much more information on this case that I didn't get into because this video would be like 10 hours long. If you're interested in learning more, check out the links below. But for now, we are moving on to the next crime case. All right, Gianni Versace. Let's get started. If you have been living under a rock and you have no idea who Gianni Versace is, let me give you a little bit of backstory. He was a total legend in his time and well beyond it. He was a legendary fashion icon in the 80s and 90s. He was born December 2nd, 1946 in southern Italy. He had an older brother, a younger sister, and then an older sister. Unfortunately, the older sister died while she was young. So his mother was a dressmaker, and Versace actually began his apprenticeship working in her dress shop. He became interested in architecture before moving to Milan, Italy, where he began his fashion career at 26. Versace was strongly influenced by pop artist Andy Warhol, as well as Greek history, which dominated the landscape of his birthplace. So his first boutique was opened in Milan's Via del Spiga in 1978. Soon after, Versace became a sensation on the international fashion scene. His designs employed vivid colors, bold prints, and sexy cuts, which were a refreshing contrast to the prevailing taste for muted colors and simplicity. He built his company with his family. His brother was the president, his sister was the vice president, and he even got his brother-in-law a position as the menswear director. In 1982, Versace expanded the business into jewelry and housewares, designing luxury furnishings, china, and textiles for the home. Versace became known for employing celebrities in his marketing campaigns and seating them in the front rows of his fashion shows. He was the first to do something like that. He's also credited with inventing the supermodel. He discovered and featured major supermodels like Naomi Campbell, Christy Turlington, and Linda Evangelista. On a more personal note, Gianni Versace was also a gay man. He met his partner, Antonio D'Amico, a model, in 1982. Their relationship lasted until Versace's murder in 1997. What a nice segue. Once again, trigger warning, we are going to be discussing murder in the following segment. This is your time to escape now. On the morning of July 15th, 1987, Versace took a walk on Ocean Drive to retrieve his morning papers. Usually, Versace had an assistant do this, but on this particular morning, he did it himself. Versace had returned to his Miami Beach mansion, and he was climbing the steps when he was shot in the head at point-blank range. His killer was 28-year-old Andrew Cunanan from California. Cunanan was obsessed with the designer and often bragged about his close friendship with Versace. This was symptomatic of Cunanan's delusions of grandeur. He often lied about knowing and being close with a lot of different celebrities. FBI agents firmly believed that Versace and Cunanan had previously met in San Francisco, although what their relationship entailed is still a mystery. However, Versace's family has always steadfastly denied that the two ever met. Prior to killing Versace, Cunanan went on a killing spree, and it was brutal. On April 27th, he killed his close friend, 28-year-old Jeffrey Trail. After an argument at Trail's apartment, Cunanan stole his gun and headed to David Madson's home. He beat Trail to death with a hammer as Madsen watched. May 3rd would find David Madson's body on the east shore of Rush Lake near Rush City, Minnesota, with gunshot wounds to the head and back. This was after a week-long stint with Cunanan. Witnesses claimed they'd seen the two driving around and even having lunch together the day before. On May 4th, Cunanan drove to Chicago, Illinois, and killed 72-year-old Lee Miglin, a prominent real estate developer. It was a vicious, brutal death. If you care to read more about it, there are links below. I'm not going to get into details like that. Let's move on. On May 9th, in Pennsville Township, New Jersey, at Finns Point National Cemetery, Cunanan shot and killed 45-year-old caretaker William Reese. Unlike Cunanan's other victims, who he killed for seemingly personal reasons, authorities believe Cunanan murdered Reese simply for his 1995 red Chevrolet pickup truck. Cunanan used this truck to drive to Florida. Yay, Florida. It was over 2 months of hiding in plain sight, living at the Normandy Plaza Hotel in Miami Beach, that Cunanan finally pulled the trigger on Gianni Versace. 2 weeks after the murder, on July 23, 1997, Cunanan's body was found in a luxury houseboat on Miami Beach, after a caretaker reported hearing a gunshot to police. Shot himself using the same handgun that he used to kill the others with. There were very few personal belongings in Cunanan's possession at the time of death. There was no suicide note, and we are left with no motivation. Now, of course, a famous fashion icon murdered before his time tends to have an impact on pop culture. They've made several documentaries on this case, as well as a few made-for-TV movies, and even a season of American Crime Story was based on this murder. Despite his tragic passing, his legacy does live on. After his death, the estate announced that Versace's brother Santo would serve as the new CEO, and Gianni Versace's sister Donatella would become the new head of design. And of course, the company is still thriving today. So that's it, y'all. Those are my 2 true crime stories from Florida history today. Have you heard of them? Are these brand new cases to you? Let me know down in the comments below. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up, and also let me know that you liked it and you're interested in hearing more. Anyway, yeah, so that is that. This is this. And my socials and stuff are down below. More information on the stories are down below. Go get vaccinated, and I'll see you all next time. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.